Welcome back to the fractions video series. We're on to video 2. We're looking at equivalent fractions in this video. Equivalent fractions are two or more fractions that are actually in the end the same size as each other. They might be taking a different format but have different numbers in them, but they're actually in the end the same size as each other. Let's have a look at a few examples. A half is actually the same size as 2 out of 4, or 2 quarters, is exactly the same size as 3 over 6. Or 4 makes up a half of 8, so 4/8. So they're all equivalent fractions. Now on the number line, let's see what happens if we were going to position each of these fractions. So here we've got a line broken up into two parts. So one out of the two parts, the half here, would be represented right here, half the distance between the 0 and the 1. In a pretty similar way, if we break up the distance between 0 and 1 into 4 equal parts, 2 out of 4 will be represented right there in the middle as well. We've come across 2 out of the 4 parts across the line. Okay, now we've broken up the line into 6 equal parts, so 3 out of 6, I think you can kind of guess the pattern here, will be represented right in the middle there as well. So you can see how very similar these ideas are on the number line. If we break up the line between 0 and 1, the interval between 0 and 1, into 8 equal parts, if we're going to position 4 out of 8, it's going to go in exactly the same spot. So let's compare all those. They're all positioned on the number line. A half, 2 quarters, 3/6, and 4/8 are all positioned on the number line in exactly the same position. So that kind of illustrates how they're equal to each other in size, so they're called equivalent fractions. Now, how do we find an equivalent fraction? Well, there's two methods. We're going to look at method 1. We take our fraction and we multiply the top and bottom by the same number. Let's see an example. If we take 3 quarters and we want an equivalent fraction to 3 quarters, we could multiply the top by 2 and the bottom by 2, and we will create an equivalent fraction. So on the top, 3 times 2 is 6. On the bottom, 4 times 2 is 8. So 6/8 is an equivalent fraction to 3 quarters. We've done exactly the same thing to the top and bottom in terms of multiplying. Let's have a look at another example. Well, same fraction we're starting with. Let's get a different equivalent fraction to 3 quarters this time by doing something different to the top and bottom. As long as we do the same thing, let's multiply this time by 3 on the top and the bottom. On the top, 3 times 3 is 9. On the bottom, 4 times 3 is 12. So 9/12 is also an equivalent fraction to 3 quarters. So as long as we do the same thing to the top and bottom, we're creating equivalent fractions. So that's multiplying top and bottom by the same number. Another way of finding equivalent fractions is to divide the top and bottom by the same number. So 8 over 10, I think you can spot that we're able to divide the top and bottom by 2. So when we do that, on the top, 8 divided by 2 equals 4. On the bottom, 10 divided by 2 equals 5. So 4/5 is an equivalent fraction to 8 over 10. We've divided the top and bottom by the same number. A different example now, 3/9. Let's get an equivalent fraction to 3/9. I think you can spot that we might be able to divide top and bottom by 3 and get an equivalent fraction. 3 divided by 3 on top equals 1. 9 divided by 3 on the bottom equals 3. So 1/3 is equivalent to 3 over 9. This dividing the top and bottom by the same number and getting a smaller, simpler, equivalent fraction is something we'll have a look at in the next video. Overall, it's called simplifying. We'll check it out in the next video. But yeah, so just to summarize, finding equivalent fractions, we can either multiply the top and bottom of the fraction by the same number, or we can divide the top and bottom by the same number. And that's equivalent fractions. I hope you have learnt something this video. See you next time.